Vampires and other blood-sucking mythological creatures has spooked humanity since we first started telling stories. But these leeches only satiate their own thirst for their own selfish survival, like a mosquito. They also often have weaknesses like not being able to be out in the sunlight. But what if there was an entity that never stopped, no matter what time it is? One who doesn't hunt to fill its own thirst, but to serve a god that needs a constant flow of blood, void of personal opinion, morals, and remorse. Strygwyr the Bloodseeker's hunt for prey makes up his entire identity. Bloodseeker is a human, and his home is Xhacatocatl, a mountain whose misty peaks host an empire that serves the Flayed Twins. They do this involuntarily, because if they refuse, the twin gods will drain the civilization of all their blood. And thus, Bloodseeker is sent out into the world to kill and cover his weapons and clothing with life force and essence. His equipment is covered in sacred markings that ensures the blood flows straight to the gods, but some of it he also uses to heal his own wounds from battle. This is the basics of the Cecotto civilization, the Flayed Twins and the blood-seeking tradition, and there's much more interesting things we are going to talk about. But before that, let's go through relationships, artifact, underlords, origin, and trivia. The only notable hero that talks to Bloodseeker in Dota 2 is Husker. They are both from what seems to be inspired by ancient American societies like the Aztecs, and they are both all about life force and sacrifice. When killing Bloodseeker, Husker says this:
"Respect, Bloodseeker."
And when Bloodseeker kills Husker, he says,
"Bloodseeker, that was well done."
When meeting allies on the battlefield, he has voice lines for Batrider, Pudge, Luna, Magnus, and Darkseer, who he for various reasons seems to be friendly with. When he kills enemies, usually his voice lines are about their blood.
Your blood was a prisoner, begging me to set it free.
And it seems that with the exception of Io, he will take whatever blood he can, even at lower quality.
Even rancid blood pleases the twins.
He is obviously very religious, and is not afraid of talking smack to other faithful, especially monotheistic.
The god who drinks no blood deserves no worshippers.
He also wants to take the omniscience as a sacrifice to the Flayed Twins.
Drink from Invoker, and the Flayed Ones pucker.
Invoker's blood may be sour because he's incredibly old, and I think it's a very funny mental image thinking about the Flayed Twins puckering their lips. Brewmaster has some voice lines talking to Bloodseeker about his blood alcohol level, and Bloodseeker returns the favor with these voice lines.
The twin shall grow drunk on this one's blood.
Lastly, Mars wants to kill the Flayed Twins.
This is going to be fun. Oh, and when we're done here, tell the Flayed Twins I'm coming for them. Happy hunting!
In Dota 2, Dark Willow says to Bloodseeker that she has seen him in Roseleaf. That is because, as we saw in the artifact lore, Bloodseeker was present simply to leech off the carnage happening between Sorla, Legion Commander, and Rix. Another thing we have learned from Artifact is that maybe the worship of the gods isn't as involuntarily as Dota 2 makes it out to be. The Flayed Twins give back to the people of Cecotto.
My homeland is a place of beauty and grace, of crystal streams and bountiful harvest. It is undeniably a gift from the gods. But when such a gift is bestowed upon you, it is right to give thanks. And there is only one way to show gratitude to the Flayed Twins: with blood.
We also learn that his position as the Bloodseeker is an honorable and sacred one, and from his cultural perspective, even desirable.
My role is a sacred one. The holy blades and armor I wield allows me to be a conduit to the Flayed Ones. And the blood I spill in combat becomes tribute, given in the name of my people.
He also seems much smarter and like he has opinions and his own twisted morals and philosophy, as we can see in his relationships.
You disgust me, Lich. Your sacrifices serve no one but yourself. A life only searching for coin is a hollow one. You need to find purpose, Gondar. The mountains of my homeland are a beauty to behold, Enchantress. When the battle is done, I could take you there.
He also seems to be a man of culture and a fellow Sorla Khan stan.
Oh, Sorla, the blood we shall spill. Good luck in your quest for glory, Sorla. Sorla, you are magnificent.
But other than seeking blood, he has no other motive for partaking in the battle. In Underlords, the most notable part of him lore-wise is that he is in the Human Alliance. Since he was not in Dota Auto Chess, this means it was Valve's decision to make him a human, and that, at least to me, proves that he was a human before his service to the Flayed Twins turned him into a bloodhound kind of creature. In Dota 1, he was simply called Strygwyr and was a mix of a demon and an orc. He used the blood of his enemies to replenish his health, even when the damage he had taken should have been fatal. It's likely that the Dota 1 Bloodseeker was literally a vampire, as his name Strygwyr is very similar to vampyr, dampyr, upyr, and most notably Strygoi, all different cultures' words for what we in English call a vampire. Note that in Dota 2, his name was changed from Strygwyr to stygwyr, either to avoid copyright issues or to distance themselves from the European folklore and make him more about Central American. His Dota 1 physical design looks like some sort of werewolf, which probably inspired his Hound-like Dota 2 look. Bloodseeker has some cute voice lines such as
Blood is in the air.
likely meaning love is in the air, but for Stygwyr it is blood he loves.
Don't be negative. Be positive.
Is a reference to blood types. His voice line
Lie down. Have a cookie.
is probably because after blood donors have had their blood tapped, they lie down and are given something sweet.
I love the smell of serum in the morning.
Is a reference to the quote, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning" from Apocalypse Now. Serum is a word that can mean blood. But now, let's dive deep into the blood-shrouded Cecotto and their culture. The Flayed Twins watch over the mountainous Xhacatocatl. We don't know much about the landscape and ecosystem of plants and animals, other than that it's a bunch of mountains that are so tall the peaks are shrouded in mist, and they are inhabited by the Xhacatocatl beasts, a kind of feathered, tusked animal. There's also the drylands to the west, where bone hunters try to get blood sacrifice from the beasts that reside there. The Flayed Twins are also known as the Twins, the Flayed Ones, and the Flayers, and they can't be destroyed or banished. The only way to make sure they don't wreak havoc is to keep them fed with blood. The attire of Bloodseeker has the Flayed Twins' blood on them, and he often wears headwear that covers his eyes. This allows the gods to take control of their bloodhound, or at the very least guide him and make him focus his sense of smell. Their blood also makes him stronger. They likely have a dog-like appearance themselves, because Bloodseeker has been altered by their projection of their own appearance into him. In order to meet the gods' demands of endless blood, it's the task of the priests of Bloodseeker's people to send out a select hound that will gather their tribute. A pup can also be present, which seems to be much like an apprentice or squire, following the current hound to get ready for succeeding him when he inevitably, eventually falls in battle. It seems like the Flayed Twins actually cares about their Bloodseeker, because Stygwyr got corrupted by the demon Aztec. He gave him some blades that would make him more effective at harvesting blood, at the cost of some of it being given to the demon. Though, the share the demon took got greater and greater, and Bloodseeker's appearance got more and more corrupted. The Flayed Twins eventually had to save him from the demon's influence before they were going to lose him completely. But this came at a great cost, showing that they actually cared enough about their hound to take a hit for him. One time, Bloodseeker's travels led him very far away, to a place where people executed rather than sacrificed. Intrigued, Bloodseeker concealed his appearance and dressed like the locals so he could observe the process. Instead of a black stone and bloodthirsty gods, these people used rope and guillotines. Though it was strange to him, he spent an entire season studying it, watching from the crowd, hoping to learn something. But then, he realized that this was no divine ritual. It was the people who the deaths were a tribute to, not to their god. He returned home to tell his priest masters about his strange experience, and brought with him the clothes and fashion, and also local blades of a different material than the classic volcanic glass Strygwyr's people use. Cecotto is very likely the dotaverse's version of the Aztec Empire. What is incredibly interesting is how the Dota lore has incorporated basically the entire pantheon of the Aztec polytheistic faith. First of all, you have the two deities who together rule the underworld, and they are a male and female couple, not twins. But their dual rulership of the underworld is similar to how when Bloodseeker's prey die, they are sacrificed and their death a tribute to the Flayed Twins. Their essence literally becomes part of the gods. Then there's also the god
Cecotto,
who was a deity of a lot of things, but mainly fertility and the natural cycle. He flayed himself to give food to humanity, which makes sense when considering what Bloodseeker says in Artifacts. The Flayed Twins make the harvest bountiful and the nature beautiful in exchange for blood, which they likely need after being flayed and bleeding endlessly. But most interesting is the Aztec creation myth, where the gods
Tezcatlipoca
and
Quetzalcoatl,
defeated the crocodile
Hipactli,
and turned her body into the earth for people to grow crops. The people had to sacrifice blood to the crocodile in exchange. Then there's also
Xolotl,
who among other things was associated with dogs and twins, and they specifically believed that
Xolotl,
and a dog led souls to the underworld. To top this off, he was the actual twin of
Quetzalcoatl,
the one I mentioned earlier who defeated the crocodile.
Quetzalcoatl,
means feathered serpent, which maybe also is the origin behind the bird-like animal from Dota 2 called Xhacatocatl, which looks for prey for the Flayed Twins. It's a sacred bird and described as a scarlet raven and the herald of blood. When the feathered one flies, the Flayed Twins smile. Lastly, maybe the most important god of the Aztecs was
Huitzilopochtli,
who the people had to make sacrifices to so he would protect them from infinite night. He wielded the serpent
Strygwyr.
as a weapon, and I think it's likely that this is where the name of Bloodseeker's home, Cecotto is from. A lot of thought was put into the Flayed Twins, and they may be the most underrated of all the deities. I also wonder if maybe they are tied to Husker and Dazzle's faith of the Nuthul realm. Maybe the Flayed Twins are the gods who reside in the Nuthul, and the Dazzle trolls need to find sacrifices for? I don't know, but that would be cool. I love Bloodseeker, and the Flayed Twins is such a cool concept. The lore video is over, but if you want some context behind my painting of Russian Bloodseeker, stick around. If you're leaving, thanks for watching, and peace. I remember it so clearly. It was one of my first games in solo queue where I could play what I wanted and didn't have to play Lich to support my 4 friends who had forced me to play Dota with them and learn the game just because they needed a 5th person who they could make their support slave. Just thinking about supporting for one more game made me sick to my stomach, so I went ahead and searched solo, claimed middle lane, and threatened to intentionally offer myself for consumption to the enemy if I was denied the position. Surprisingly, my team obliged. I was a bit baffled that I was given the role so easily without a fight, and in hindsight, my poor team just probably assumed I knew what I was doing. I believe I picked Necrophos and went mid to do what I had seen my friend do mid with his epic Ember Spirit. There was a few problems though. He was like 4.2k with hundreds of games with Ember Spirit mid, and this was in 2014 when 4k wasn't atrocious and I had never actually given mid a proper go before. Needless to say, I fed hard. Another thing solo queue introduced me to was random teammates, who I quickly learned often didn't speak the common tongue. One such was on my team this particular game, and I believe he was Russian. He spoke loudly over a poor microphone, and I suspected his anger was directed towards my performance in the mid lane. He was playing Bloodseeker, and he was jungling. Now, you might think this experience would make me hate Russians, especially because in previous games at my skill level, the Russians were all over the place, and the inability to communicate with them, I will admit, caused some frustration. And for a moment, his strict judgment of my playstyle did make me think he was awfully unsympathetic, but then something happened. I remember the game was going extremely poorly, because my feeding had led the enemy mid, who I believe was either a SF or a Quap, to gank and make the other lanes feed too. But then, after what felt like what must have been at least 15 minutes, the unscathed Russian Bloodseeker emerged from the jungle and cleaned up after a fight we had lost. He got a couple of kills. Then, he started ganking the enemies, one by one, catching them off guard, over and over, because it was probably unironically like 1.5k MMR, and there no one reconsiders behavior that has previously gotten them killed. Since leaving the jungle with his shadow blade and violent pings targeting the enemies, the game took a 180 and turned completely around, and we ended up winning. As we savored our victory, the last thing he said on mic was, "Commend," as he disconnected. I don't know if I have ever played alongside or against this player again. I also don't know how much of this story is true and how much is my memory playing tricks or just embellishment for the sake of a better story. But I know one thing. This game made me forever respect Russians. And of course, the next game I immediately picked Bloodseeker myself, went to the jungle, and for the first time was able to carry games on my own. Thank you, Russian Bloodseeker, for taking the entire team on your shoulders and inspiring me to become the jungle exclusive player I am hated for being today.